Imagine living in a perfectly normal house, except the front door is in Belgium and your bedroom is in the Netherlands. Sounds strange, right? But it gets even stranger. Because on the other side of the world, there's a border that doesn't just cross through houses, it crosses itself. 3 times. A border that changes countries twice a year, on schedule. 2 islands, close enough to see each other clearly, but 21 hours apart. And a house so tangled between 2 countries that, at one point, even figuring out which country owned the front door became a problem. Every one of these was decided by someone, in a room, centuries before you were born. So let's start with the place where the map seems to have completely given up. Baarle isn't really one town, it's 2. Belgium and the Netherlands, tangled together so completely that the border doesn't just run along roads or through fields. It runs straight through buildings, through shops, through living rooms. In some houses, you can literally stand with one foot in Belgium and the other in the Netherlands. And there's a reason it ended up this way. Hundreds of years ago, local rulers were trading pieces of land back and forth, not countries, not neat little territories with straight borders. Just farms, fields, villages and parcels of land, changing hands between medieval lords. And nobody bothered to clean up the mess. Then, in 1830, Belgium became independent from the Netherlands. And you'd think that would have been the perfect moment to finally draw a nice, clean border. They didn't. They simply followed the old medieval patchwork, so the weird little pieces of land stayed exactly where they were. And suddenly, a border that had once been a feud between medieval landowners became an international border, right through people's homes. For a while, this created some wonderfully bizarre situations. Belgian shops closed on Sundays. Dutch shops didn't. So if you were standing outside a Belgian shop on Sunday and really needed something, you could just walk a few feet across the border and buy it in the Netherlands. Different tax rules created even more opportunities. A border that ran through your house wasn't just an interesting conversation starter. Sometimes it was an economic strategy. And that's what makes Baarle so fascinating. These people didn't wake up one morning and decide they wanted to live in 2 countries. They simply inherited a border that somebody else had drawn centuries earlier. But if you think that's strange, wait until you see a border that literally folds back into itself. Before 2015, India and Bangladesh had hundreds of enclaves scattered across each other's territory, tiny pieces of one country completely surrounded by the other. And then it got ridiculous. Some enclaves contained smaller enclaves, and some of those contained another enclave inside them. India inside Bangladesh, inside India, inside Bangladesh. 3 layers deep. Imagine looking at a map and realizing that you are somehow standing inside your own country, which is inside another country, which is inside your country again. It sounds like a cartographer's joke. It wasn't. People actually lived there. And the problem wasn't just that the borders looked strange. Getting basic services across them could become incredibly difficult. Roads didn't necessarily connect these communities to their own country. Electricity and government services became complicated. And even something as simple as figuring out which authorities were responsible for you could become a nightmare. For generations, people simply lived with it. Then, in 2015, India and Bangladesh finally did something that seemed almost impossible. They traded the enclaves. The patchwork was finally untangled. After centuries, the map was cleaned up. But not every strange border gets fixed. Some just keep going. And the next one has been running on a schedule for more than 350 years. This island is only about 300 meters long, and twice a year, it changes countries. No invasion, no election, no war. Just a date on the calendar. This is Pheasant Island, sitting in the river between France and Spain. From February to July, it's Spanish. Then, on August 1st, it becomes French, and 6 months later, it switches back. The arrangement dates back to the Treaty of the Pyrenees in 1659. And somehow, the tradition is still going. Think about how strange that is. 2 countries spent centuries fighting over territory, and eventually, they reached an agreement that essentially said, fine, you take it for 6 months, we'll take it for the next 6. And that's exactly what happens. Nobody lives on the island permanently. Nobody is fighting over it. Nobody is trying to build a new country there. It just quietly changes nationality twice a year, like the world's strangest timeshare. And if Pheasant Island sounds bizarre, the next border takes the idea of distance and completely breaks it, because these 2 islands are only about 3.8 kilometers apart, close enough to see the other island clearly, close enough, in the right conditions, to see people on the other side. But they're separated by something far stranger than a few kilometers. They're separated by a day. This is Little Diomede, Alaska, and across the water is Big Diomede, Russia. Between them runs the international dateline. So although the islands are only a few kilometers apart, they're roughly 21 hours apart in time. You're looking at tomorrow, and you're looking at yesterday, all from the same stretch of ocean. During the Cold War, this tiny gap became one of the most surreal borders on Earth. The United States and the Soviet Union were enemies, and here, their territories were sitting almost within sight of each other. People who had once crossed the ice to visit relatives suddenly found themselves separated by one of the most heavily guarded political boundaries in the world. 2 islands, 2 countries, 2 different days, and just a few kilometers between them. 4 borders, 4 completely different stories. A medieval land dispute, a border that folded into itself, an island that changes nationality twice a year, and a line that can put you in another day without you moving more than a few kilometers. But they're all telling us the same thing. A shopkeeper in Baarle didn't choose to live between 2 countries. The people of the former Indian and Bangladeshi enclaves didn't choose to live inside a country that was inside another country. Nobody living near Pheasant Island voted for a 6-month calendar. And the people on the Diomede Islands didn't decide where the international dateline should go. Someone else made those decisions, usually a very long time ago. And then generations of people simply learned to live with them. That's the strange thing about borders. We look at a map and see these clean, permanent lines. But they're not natural. They're agreements, old arguments, treaties, compromises, mistakes. Sometimes they're just decisions made by people who had no idea what the world would look like centuries later. The border was never the strange part. The strange part is that we all agreed to believe in it. This is the Meridian, where lines change the world. And if you've ever looked at a line on a map and thought, wait, why is it like that? Subscribe. Because there are a lot more strange lines out there.